My parents threw fake money at me when I exposed their blatant theft to the rest of the family, by user SoyNoPop. This happened in 2015. I was 18 and about to move out on my own. Prior to this I had a savings account my parents had helped me set up. And I'd been putting money into it any way I could for 3 years. Birthday money, odd jobs, part-time after-school job washing dishes, all that stuff. And I'd managed to get a few thousand into it. I'd really been wanting to move out because I have 2 little brothers that absolutely drive me up the wall. My parents loved making me the live-in babysitter whenever I wasn't working. Which is why I used the excuse to work as much as I could. When the time came that I wanted to move out, my parents said they wanted me to stay because they needed my help. And were wanting me to start paying rent to help with bills. But I held my ground that I wanted to live on my own. I'd already paid the deposit and first month's rent on an apartment without telling them. And by that point I had a local full-time job. So I was set to move out after about another month. So when they found that out, they freaked and told me to get out that day if I wanted to be on my own so bad. I packed what I could and left to go to my aunt and uncle's house. It was a 4-mile ride with a bicycle that I had a small trailer hooked to. When I told my aunt and uncle what happened, they were very angry, and took me in right away. A couple days later I went to withdraw all the money from my account and saw that it was empty. My parents had come in the day prior and cleaned it out. All the bank could do was give me a balance statement saying so. Because my parents were CO signers on the account, that meant they had access to the money too. I was livid, and immediately told my aunt and uncle as soon as I could. They were beyond angry too. Then my aunt got an idea and started calling up other people in the family to tell them what my parents had done. It wasn't long before the shit had hit the fan. My other aunts and uncles, cousins, and grandparents were all furious and let my parents have it. I don't know what kind of excuses my parents gave them. But it didn't work. The next time I saw my parents, they'd showed up to my aunt and uncle's house to yell at me. When they saw me, my mother threw some money at me and called me an ungrateful brat for telling everyone. My aunt then said it was her who told everyone, not me. I looked at the money they'd thrown and it was just some kid play money my little brothers had. I asked where the real money was. And my parents said they'd already used it to pay off a credit card. I said I wanted the money they stole back for real. But they refused and said it was their right to take it since they'd opened the account for me and I still have a job. My expenses at the moment were fine because my next paycheck was deposited in a new account. And I was able to save until the apartment was ready. But my parents took a lot of heat from my aunt and uncle until they left. My cousin also used to babysit for my parents when I was busy. And she not only refused to do so again after what they did, but told me she put out the word to other teen babysitters on social media to avoid my parents because they were thieves. By the time I was living in my apartment, my parents finally couldn't take the social stigma anymore and met me to compromise. They said they couldn't pay me back all at once. And asked for a payment plan. I had the exact number of the amount they'd stolen and said I wanted it all back. They actually tried to haggle me down to half the total. But I refused to anything but the full amount. They reluctantly agreed and gave me $200 a month in cash for 2 years before it was all paid back. Now I barely ever see my parents, let alone speak to them. And they clearly still blame me for what happened too, because their reputations in the family never recovered. But I don't care. They were thieves that paid the piper. My mom got upset with me for not giving her enough attention at my husband's memorial. She ended up calling the police on me, by user to Manikedslaw. My husband passed away unexpectedly last month. It's honestly the worst thing I've ever had to go through. I'm now a single mum to children aged between 2 and 20. 2 days after my husband passed she came by but brought her 3 dogs with her knowing that one of her dogs isn't friendly with children and knowing I also have animals. We had my husband's memorial at a local park where we had been married. I struggled to hold it together and besides brief hellos I only spoke to those helping set up and then I gave my speech. I approached my mom when I saw she had arrived, said hi and let her know my brother, who's NC with her, was there. Later I noticed she was gone without even saying goodbye. A few days later my 20-year-old, he is my stepson who has never paid any attention to before, gets a message from her asking him to come stay the week to paint her house. I spoke to MR20 and my other children's therapists who all agree it's too soon after losing their father for their brother who lives with us to be gone for a week. A few of my younger children are autistic. Later that night I called M to chat about it and she says it's been 3 weeks, you need to get over it with that I saw red. I let loose and tell her I'll never be over it. I then threw at her that I noticed that she couldn't be bothered to say goodbye at the memorial, to which she then had a go at me for having my brother there, as it made her uncomfortable. I reminded her that that day wasn't about her. I let loose on a lot that phone call. In the end I hung up the phone. The next morning I got a call from the police saying that M had called them and told them that I was trying to end my life. I was lucky, as I had spoken to the same officer only 2 days prior, and she told me she got the impression that I'd reach out for help if needed, which is why she chose to call instead of a home visit, which, given my past history, which M knows about, they would have taken me to hospital as precaution. I've now gone NC with M. I fully believe, knowing her, that she only invited my son over as she knows he has been one of my biggest supports as retaliation for not giving her enough attention at the memorial. After I went NC, I found out that she told my other stepson that she only came because it would have looked bad on her if she didn't. Others also told me she kept yelling at my brother and complaining that I wasn't leaning on her for support. I'm so glad I've gone NC. Entitled Mom wanted me to take off my bra, by user Shatunithep4. So this happened like 4 or 3 days ago. Which won't matter, but I thought I'd mention it. My fiancé and I were at a Wendy's eating our lunch, and the whole time we sat there, I kept feeling this woman and her 13, maybe 15-year-old son staring at us with this look of disgust. Now, me and my fiancé are both trans women, so we're used to it. We just got up and sat somewhere else out of view. Not even 5 minutes later, she walks over to where we are and taps my shoulder. Before the next part, I was wearing a loose-fitted hoodie, and sometimes the shoulders would droop and show my bra strap. Anyway, I look at her and she's not with her son. Excuse me, loud AF. Me, yes? Is there something you need? Yes. You are making my son extremely uncomfortable. Me, how so? I haven't spoken to your son at all. Well, sir, we can see your bra. It's disgusting and you need to take it off. Me, now trying not to punch her, I'm not doing that. I have C cups, ma'am. If your son has such an issue, then he needs to stop staring. All right, you asked for this. She then walked to the counter and demanded to see a manager. In about 5 minutes, the manager brings her back over to us and we all tell our side of the story. Of course, she's demanding that he kick us out because we're disturbing my poor baby boy. Not even kidding. After we tell our stories, she admits she told me I need to remove my bra, and he just says, "I'll give you 2 choices. You can either mind your business or you can leave. Your choice." Next thing you know, she's dragging her baby boy out by his wrist. I really hope that kid's okay. Even though he's the asshole that sent mommy over to harass me. Edit, the more I think about it, the more I realize the kid most likely didn't send her over. Sorry, y'all. Entitled Mother told me to act and dress like a lady because I'm setting a bad example for her teenage daughter, by user EpicWinterWolf. So this happened when I took the train to school today. I'm a stocky-built tomboy. I like loose, sporty clothes, baseball hats, and to keep my hair short and tied back. I'm not your stereotypical doll that society wants. So I was just sitting on the train, minding my own business and scrolling Reddit on my phone. Then, this woman from the other side of the train car came up and told me that I needed to act and dress like a proper lady because I was setting a bad example for her daughter. Her daughter, who's obviously a teen and dresses like a normal girl. I just looked at that lady and told her to frick off and mind her own business. She got angry and started screaming and cussing at me, saying I was a disgrace, and I'm already depressed enough, a whole bunch of other shit about how I needed to change to be a part of accepted society, that I was going to be nothing but useless, for a solid 5 minutes. And we were approaching the next station. The doors opened and I shoved her off with my forearms, making her land on her ass. Told her to go F***ck herself, and she was so dazed she didn't get up and on the train before the doors closed. But she did get up and started banging her fists on the doors, trying to open them as the train moved. I just flipped her the bird and watched as we left the station. So she was left at the stop with a bruised ass, and I turned to her daughter, who had her face in her hands, apologized to her but said her mother deserved it, and then sat back down. I'll see if I get any grief about it tomorrow. But I already was having a bad enough day and didn't need that lady's sexist shit. Edit, to clarify, I pushed her off with my forearms as she was in my personal space in a pandemic. I'm also autistic and was doing everything in my power not to punch her in the face. And I wasn't going to listen to her screaming for the next 20 minutes until I got to my stop. I think I handled that well. Edit 2, Someone just gave me my first platinum. I honestly have no words. Thank you. Maybe I could have handled it better. But like I've stated, she was screaming in my face. Literally. For 3 minutes straight. And in a pandemic. She was insulting me, how I dress, how I am, and just tearing me down. I'm not going to put up with that, and I just pushed her away. I wanted to punch her, but I didn't. I pushed her away from me. It just happened to be off the train. Edit 3, OMG. I went to sleep and woke up to a second platinum and a gold, along with other awards. Wow, thank you so much, kind strangers. Also, to clarify, I did make sure the daughter would be okay after I cooled off. She said she'd be fine and would wait for her mom at their stop. She did look totally embarrassed by her mother's actions too. And it was at 2 p.m., so way before sunset, still in daylight time. To all those saying I could have just walked away, she was literally in my face. To even stand up, I had to push her back with my forearms because she refused to move. Then she kept trying to block me, cornered me. I just hit my limit. I hate being cornered, and her screaming was so loud. I just reacted and removed her from my space the moment I could. Maybe I could have handled it better, but at that moment I just wanted her out of my space. Would you be able to put up with being cornered and verbally assaulted by a bitch with a nails on chalkboard voice? Edit 4, to clarify, this happened in Canada, in the GTA. Not the US. Stop assuming everything was in the States. Edit 5, to the bitch who posted this on r/not-liked-heather-girls, take it down. Yeah, I got anger issues. And I'm sorry if I'm not all glitter glam and nice dressing. But when you get picked on girls wearing that, you get bitter to the styles. I do try to accept other styles, especially as my sister dresses like the other girls. Fine. That's her style. But not mine. Give me track pants and a loose tee any day. So I'm sorry if I came across bitter, but after what that bitch on the train said about my looks, I am really hating fancy lady clothes right now. Slept over at BF's and woke up to a horror story, by user throwaway_Reddit 0r. For background, I'm 19F and my, now ex, boyfriend is 20M. It's his biological mother I'll be referring to here. Boyfriend and I were together for 2 months at this point, but have been friends for several years prior. We broke up very soon after this, and this event took place about 2 weeks ago, and I need it off my chest. Now I've had a few odd things come up while talking to his mother, but we have only talked a little here and there, maybe 4 or 5 times until this point. Each time wasn't comfortable, but nothing I didn't think was outside of the norm for a mother teasing her son. Comments about meeting the family and staying a week in another state where said extended family lived in a room with BF only a week into meeting me, or talking about how small I was and how I could fit inside her wedding dress. Stuff that was definitely odd, but I rarely saw her and thought little of it. BF had warned me she was off her rocker a bit, but, as I said, I didn't interact much with the lady. Although one more odd thing I will add, a week into briefly mentioning that we were together, his mother told his entire family and somehow sent photos of me to them. I don't have her on any social media, and my BF had not sent her any, to the point my BF was getting calls from family members he hadn't spoken to in years about how him and I were doing. Now I will say, as much as we were friends for years, we lived apart and never met up unless it was public without family around, just because it's easier to meet in between each other. Now on to the main event. After a night of relaxing and playing video games at my then boyfriend's house, we got snowed in quite early on in the night, and neither of us drive, and it's a good 30 minutes to my house and everyone is asleep. I decided against better judgment to spend the night, as it was recommended prior to me by him and his parents if I ever needed it, and they assured me it would be no issue and they could take me home the next morning. Now I've had a few awkward bumps in the road with his mother before this, but nothing that said run in big bold letters like this. At about 7 o'clock in the morning, earlier than the alarm we had even set, we hear loud banging on the door, almost as if someone was trying to tear the wall down. I assumed this was maybe some work getting done to the house or something of the sort, and just tried to shut my eyes. A few minutes after the banging gets unbearable, the door swings open and she barges in. I hear his mother yell his name a few times as she makes her way over to the bed. I assumed at this point, she was pissed and tried my best to act as if I was sleeping. She told Google, he has one of those things that can turn off or on the lights via voice, to turn the lights all the way up, and began to stand over the bed where we were sleeping. FYI fully clothed, not even near each other. She then begins to repeatedly tell "oh my god" for a good while until she says X is still here. She sits down on the bed as BF promptly asks if she can calm down and leave. She insists she is going to stay right here and begins talking in a voice you'd only talk to a child or an animal in. She asks us if we are fully dressed and we both say yes and show her, although I would like to state, she is by no means very hard on religion in this aspect or anything and is just asking for the sake of being weird. She talks about how she knew I would stay over and how I wanted to. Asterisk for the record, I did not want to. I even had an hour-long discussion with BF before going to bed about why I dislike sleeping over places, but it was against all odds. I let her know I actually have school this afternoon and I wasn't planning on staying, I have to go here pretty soon anyways. The snow had gotten bad and everyone was asleep, so I slept over. She tells me that she knows that's a lie and that it's okay because you're a part of the family now. She then rambles about how she wants grandkids but not so soon and how I could fit into her wedding dress better than her own daughter. Asterisk, please keep in mind I have met this woman no more than 5 times now in my life, each in very short intervals. I then tell her that I need to leave in the next 2 hours to go work on schoolwork and she tells me that there's no way I'll get home and I'll just have to stay the night again and we can all pretend to be a big happy family. I say that I'll get my father if it's troubling for them to drive in this weather but reaffirm that I need to go home. She says she isn't going to take me home and I can stay here as long as I like because she knows I love it here. She asks us if we want breakfast and that she can make us some. We tell her no and ask her for the 100th time during this to leave. Of course these are just the main things she said, but she mentions marriage among other things as well. It took him forever to even get her to leave because she insisted I liked her company and we were family and she's his mother and therefore can say anything she wants. After she leaves I luckily am able to get a ride home earlier than expected via my BF's dad, just 15 minutes later, and we hurry out the door. As we are in the car, she calls my BF's phone and her husband's frantically until her husband answers and asks to be passed to BF. She then, on speakerphone, begs him to speak to me as she thinks I left because of her. That was definitely why I left early, but I also, as I told her, had other plans. This goes on for another minute before he hangs up on her and mutes the phone and gives it back to his dad. I later found out she did the same to all his sister's exes, even to a larger scale, which led to his sister moving out soon after. She also feels she did no wrong and wanted to continue to see me afterwards and even cried when confronted by her husband and son on her behavior. That's the last I ever talked to the woman and hopefully it stays that way. Edit, added spaces between walls of text, have gotten some comments saying it's poorly written. I do apologize, but if you let me know what I can fix, I will.